Hi guys, Happy New Year and welcome to the Daisy Lane Design Less Waste Sew Along. I'm very happy that you decided to join us and I'm very excited to get started. I hope that you are too. This month's project is a set of 4 cloth napkins. I'm going to be demonstrating using non-directional fabric. It's the easiest fabric to work with when you're starting out sewing because there are fewer considerations as far as which way is up and the pattern on the fabric itself. So we're going to use that in our demonstrations. However, I need to point out that when I first taped this series, I was showing 3 different kinds of fabric. It got really long, really wordy, and it's not necessary. If you're a more advanced sewer and have more advanced tools, comfort level with directional fabric, or just want to go for it, then you are more than welcome to do so. And I just want to make sure that the classes and tutorials are accessible to all skill levels, and so that's what we're going to be using today. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. This project is to last the entire month of January, and you can make 1 or as many cloth napkins as you like. Tag them all with hashtag Less Waste SAL on Instagram in order to win any of the prizes, and I'll give you more information about those at the end of the video. Here are the supplies that you will need for this project. I have 1 yard of non-directional fabric, a pair of fabric scissors, and a sewer's gauge that has this slidey piece that I can move up and down while I'm measuring. Those are the bare necessities. Obviously off camera is my sewing machine and thread, and also an ironing board and iron. If you have a rotary cutting mat and a rotary cutter and you want to use those with a quilter's ruler and shape cut, feel free to do so. But I'm trying to keep things basic for our first project, and so really this is all that you're going to need to get started. Alright, so I've cleared everything away except for my 1 piece of non-directional fabric. If that is a term that is confusing to you, it basically means there's not a right or wrong way up for this fabric. You can see that some of the stems go this way, some of the stems go that way, and that even if we were to turn the fabric to the side, it still makes sense as a design and nothing looks upside down or out of place. If you do not have a rotary cutter and shape cut or ruler, you can use a pair of scissors to cut your fabrics. Oh, I should mention that all of my fabrics have been machine washed and dried. So when we're working with things that we're going to be using in our kitchen, it makes good sense to launder your fabrics the way you're going to launder your finished products so that nothing shrinks once we've put our things together. This piece is folded in half lengthwise, so I have the wrong sides of the fabric touching, and these are called the selvage edges. They are lined up together, and then I just use my iron to press on the fold here. Selvage edges are the finished edges of a piece of fabric that comes off the bolt. Once you wash and dry your piece, you're going to get these frayed yuckies at the top and bottom. So we're going to get rid of all of that with our cutting. So just using my fabric scissors, I'm just going to cut off, using this white line as a guide, I'm just going to cut off the entire length of my selvages. And I should also mention while I'm cutting that I am left-handed, and that is going to be something we'll have to talk about and consider for different parts of these tutorials. I know at least one of you are also left-handed, and so the sides that I work on will make sense to you. But if you're not, then it's going to look a little backwards. So we'll talk about that as we go forward, especially when we start using the rotary cutter. I know when I teach my students in my rotary cutting class, it is helpful for all of the cutting tools to be on the opposite side than what I show them. So when we reach that point, we will chat about that. All right, so I've cut away my selvage edge, and then I'm going to cut my yard of fabric into 4 equal parts. Open up your fabric, and you would follow your ironed line here that you made with your iron. You would just cut down that line as well with your scissors. Now I have 2 pieces of fabric, and I need to turn these into 2 pieces each. So I'm going to take my wrong sides together once again, meet up all my edges, head over to my ironing board, and iron this side of my fabric as well. I'm going to do that on both of my pieces. So I'll step off and iron these parts and then be right back to show you the next cut. There are my crisply ironed little lines there, and I'll do the same thing that I did with the bigger piece. Set that one aside. I'll just open each one up one at a time and cut down following my line from where I ironed. And I'll repeat on the second piece of fabric. What we have left is 4 beginnings of napkins with a little bit of a raw edge down here to deal with at the bottom. To deal with that last little fiddly part and give yourself a straight edge to cut on, I would just bring the pieces of the napkin close to that raggedy edge and line up your side cuts as best you can, and iron along your fold again like we've been doing. And here's one that I have ironed already. And you can see each napkin's going to be slightly different. Like each amount that you still have to cut away is going to be slightly different. But as long as the napkins are the same size that way, you'll be fine. See, having the right tools makes the cutting so much easier. This is a little bit convoluted. However, sometimes you're not in a position to buy those things yet, and that is okay too. So I just want to make this first project especially accessible to everyone, no matter where you are on your sewing journey, so that you feel successful and excited about the things that come up. Alrighty, so I'm going to just cut away the last little fringy piece that I have on all 4 of my napkins. Now this guy's ready to be sewn. So I'll finish up the other 3 that I have over there on the side. So there are all 4 of my non-directional fabric napkins all trimmed up. And I just wanted to point out, here are all the scraps that I cut away. So this was a full yard of fabric cut into 4 napkins, and this is all that's left over. And really, you can save these pieces for tying them up into little packages. So it really can be a zero waste project if you like. All right, so you're gonna place your fabric down with the right side of the fabric facing your ironing board and the wrong side, then obviously facing up. And you're going to use your sewing gauge to iron down a seam. So if you're not familiar with a sewing gauge, it is a tool, sewing tool, very handy, where you can mark as short, as narrow, shallow, or as deep a fold as you want when you're ironing your pieces of fabric. For our purposes, I'm going to set the little slide at the 1/2 inch mark. And how this works is you would pull down your fabric towards the wrong side and rest the raw edge of the fabric up against the little shelf that's made with that slide, those 2 little blue triangles, sorry. And you're going to rest the raw edge on it and then slide the fabric up so that the fold that you make lays at the very top of the ruler. As long as this little blue piece doesn't move, then you have a 1/2 inch fold right here from the top to the raw edge of your fabric. If you're pushing up your fabric and this blue thing happens to move, well then you wind up with a wider fold than you're intending. So make sure that you keep your eye on your slide. And once you kind of get the hang of this, of what a 1/2 inch looks like, it's a lot easier to do, and then you wind up just using the gauge as a guide more than anything else. So I'm going to use my gauge to make a 1/2 inch fold all the way down one side of my napkin. So now that I have my 1/2 inch fold, I still have this raw edge to contend with down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to tuck that raw edge up and under so that it meets the fold at the top, and then you don't see it anymore. So I'm gonna kind of open what I just did, fold the raw edge back down towards the fold that you made with your iron, and then fold the whole thing again. So you're winding up with a 1/4 inch seam. Once you get really good at this too, you can do it while the seam is closed. And re-ironing the whole space. So that is how you would get your seam folded and ready for stitching for the non-directional fabric. It's pretty easy. Flip it over so you can see. There's not anything you need to worry about as far as interruption of the pattern and things like that. So again, if you're new to this, non-directional fabric is the way to go to at least start. And then we'll come back in a little while and I'll show you how to stitch that. Guys, we're actually to the sewing part of the sewing class. It's amazing because those who don't sew don't often realize how much pre-work has to go into getting things ready for sewing before you actually ever get to the machine. But here we are, finally, yahoo! So I have my machine threaded with just white all-purpose thread. It doesn't bother me that the thread is going to show up. If you choose to do something different so that your stitches don't show up as much, go for it. But I'm 90% of the time I use white thread for just about everything that I sew. And what I did off camera, here is the fold and the ironing work that we did together, and then across and on the other side I did the same to one of my edges. I left the top that you see there and the bottom opposite unfolded, and I'm going to show you how to stitch just down one side, and then I would do the other side, and before I go back in and make my second set of folds on the top and bottom. So I wanted to also point out this little square. It's just a little square of interfacing. You can use a little square of scrap fabric, but it is going to serve as what's called my spider. And the spider is a scrap piece of fabric that you use to do some pre-stitching into, so that when you get to the actual piece that you're working on, the stitches are even and smooth, and whatever kind of bunchy mess is going to will wind up in the spider. In fact, that's where it gets its name from, because it winds up looking like a stringy spider once you've used it several times. And you won't have any worries about getting your thread caught in your feed dogs or into your finished project. So I'm just going to lower my foot onto my spider and do a couple stitches till I get to the edge. And then right as the edge, I'm ready to feed my regular fabric in. Now, choices. I'm working from the wrong side of my napkin because I like seeing where my stitches are going to go and to make sure that my stitches line up along my second fold. So I want my stitches to be as close to my almost off camera, as close to my inside stitches without obviously not catching my fold. But they'll look prettier if they're all along that edge. That way there's no as very little rollback as possible. If you are confident that you can make that happen from the right side, you can go ahead and stitch from the right side, but most people most often will start from the wrong side when they're getting used to stitching, so that they are sure that their stitches wind up in the spot that they want them to wind up in. So that's what I'm going to do just for demonstration purposes, and I'm going to set my stitch length a little bit longer because it is a top stitching rather than seam stitching, and I'd like that to go a little faster. So I'm almost at the end of my spider, a couple more stitches, and then I'm just gonna ease my napkin right up so they're like butt up against each other like this. My first couple stitches will go forward in the machine, and then I will back tack a couple times just to set that seam and continue down the side of my napkin. And you can back tack there as well. And then release it from your machine, cut off the threads. You'll see my nicely done stitch, and I'll just use my scissors to cut away my spider. Then I would go back in and do the same thing on the other side where my fold is. And then all I would need to do at this point is to go back in to my two raw edges, iron them down just like I did before, tuck up those raw edges and run those seams as well. All right, I am back with our third side. You can see our stitches from side 2, and now I went back over to the iron and ironed just as we did before on the third and fourth side. As you can well imagine, there's some extra bulk in there that we're going to need to get over with our foot, and we'll use our spider as we did before, but we're also going to use, I have a little awl, just a little, you can use the edges or the tips of a sharp pair of scissors. And the awl is just going to help encourage the fabric to stay folded as we have it and to get over this hump on the side. So I will begin stitching, get my stitches, oops, my fabric didn't get pulled up under. Want to make sure that the fabric is butt right up against the spider. Otherwise, the spider doesn't tend to work as well. And then I'm placing the awl right at the base of the bump. So it's just, I'm not going to be shoving. There's no shoving happening, but it's just encouraging it as the needle moves up and down and the feed dog suck through. It's just encouraging the fabric to move in the direction it's supposed to go rather than bunching up and getting stuck there. So fingers crossed. We'll see if it works. Yes. And now I'm in my stitches. I want to back tack and continue on encouraging the fabric to move in the direction we want it to go. And you just need to make sure, the reason I keep moving things around is I don't want my needle to come down in my awl. All right, I've gotten over our tough spot. So I'm just gonna finish this side. And we'll do the same thing at the bottom of this seam. Reaching the bottom, I'm just gonna place my awl at the base of our stitching, making sure that the needle is not going to find it. Back tack my stitch, reposition again so I don't wind up sewing my awl, and we're done. So our stitches look pretty, they didn't get all bunchy, and the seam is complete. And I would just go and repeat that for the other side. So there you have it, guys, our first completed project. I hope that you enjoyed working on this together, and I'd love to hear and see your success stories. So please make sure to post down below this link so that I can hear all about it. And don't forget to add your finished projects or in progress stuff, whatever you feel like sharing, on Instagram with the hashtag lesswaste, SAL, and you will be entered to win our prize. So let's talk about our prize for this month. I was going to give away the rolled hem feet, and I have to be honest, I still have a lot to learn with those. They are tricky. There's a steep learning curve. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I just think it'll be a source of frustration and not really a fun thing to win. So I bagged that. And instead, I'm going to be giving away this pair of buttons. They are little cute owls, and they are handmade buttons from Natalie of Remembrances Pottery. She is one of our Sew Along participants, and she is a potter who is most well known, I should say, for her knitting mugs, but she also makes an assortment of great buttons, and these will look darling, I think, on our coffee sleeve for next month. So I'm just going to do like a random number generator for all the people who use the hashtag during January, and then draw a name and send a lucky winner this set of buttons so that they can use it in their coffee sleeve for next month. So that's it for January, guys. I am going to plan a live video about halfway through the month. I'll be in touch to let you know when that is going to happen. That way, if you have any questions or comments and you'd like to talk to me more interactively, then we can do so then. And if not, then I will respond to your comments, and I'll see you next month. Bye!